Thank you very much, David, and good evening to you all, to our viewers who are watching us right now. I don't know how much of a good evening we can say tonight. We are covering here live from the Yad, the neighborhood of Yamin Moshe in Jerusalem, the last events. And with me right now in this studio is Mr. Ashraf Al-Ajrami, member of the Fatah Council. Thank you very much for coming to the studio.
Okay.
And also Mr. Dov Lipman from the Yesh Atid party. Thank you very much for coming. So let's start with you, Mr. Lipman. It is a very hard night, and we are hearing accusations all around from the Palestinians, from the Israelis. The Israelis today, we hear a lot of parliament members accusing President Mahmoud Abbas a direct, let's say, fault on what is happening and what happened, or maybe the last events that Jerusalem is experiencing. We sat down today with Finance Minister Yair Lapid, and he said that Prime Minister, President Mahmoud Abbas is partly the one to blame. Do you think that as well?
I think actually your very first words tell a tragic story here, and that is accusations from the Palestinians. The only thing we should be hearing today from the Palestinians is condemnation and a call for the end of terror. I can tell you as a member of the Knesset, if God forbid such a thing took place towards the other direction, that's what you would be hearing from the overwhelming majority, if not all, of the members of the Knesset. And that's what we should be hearing. So therefore, I certainly back the chairman of my party and the finance minister, Yair Lapid, again, a party that believes in two states for two people, that believes we need to work on reaching an agreement, that we condemn the incitement that comes from the Palestinian side. You can't call. I was on your set last week in I-24, and a member of Fatah sat across from me and talked about the Jewish contamination of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That is libelous. That is a false claim which incites people to act. Correct. So therefore, that kind of talk has to stop. There needs to be a strong condemnation of terror and a statement. We are here to work together with the Israelis on coexistence and working on an agreement. And until that happens, yes, a finger can be pointed to the Palestinian side.
So let's ask the Palestinian side, who's sitting right here next to me, why we don't hear big condemnation from the Palestinian Authority, why we don't hear these kind of things. Maybe the voices, the majority of the voices that we are hearing from Israeli members or parliament members in the Israeli government when horrible things happen, like the assassination, like the murder of Mohammed Abu Khdeir, why we don't hear it from the Palestinian side?
I think the situation on the Palestinian side is very bad, really, because the atmosphere and the Palestinian society after the provocations of the settlers, if there is in Jerusalem or in the West Bank. So it is not easy for any Palestinian leader to say in a very strong condemnation like President Mahmoud Abbas. But I think the President Mahmoud Abbas represents all the Palestinians and represents the leadership. And if he condemned this action very strongly as he did today afternoon, I think it is clearly that the Palestinian leadership don't like to see any kind of violence and such activities also.
You know, to see the happy voices that we heard, the praises that we heard today from the Palestinian side, to see sweets are being given to people on the streets about this act of terror, to see the families reacting that they're glad that their sons committed such a crime. Let me be personal, give you a personal note here. As an Arab, as a Muslim, if I'm trying to think and to put my place instead of an Israeli Jew right now in the state of Israel, here living in Jerusalem, every Arab, every Muslim Arab is a suspect to me, and I can understand that in one way or another, because these acts are putting big, huge stain on the entire Muslim population or that lives in Israel, or on the entire Palestinian population that lives in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. These acts are not doing any good to the Palestinians and not doing any good to Islam. or to the people who are fighting in the name of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which should be a very sacred place?
I think that you are right in somehow, because it is not accepted from my point of view, and I think from the majority point of view, to ask the Israelis not to go to the holy places for Palestinians and to do such act in a place for prayers. It is
Yes.
not acceptable anymore. But I think that the same thing, what happens within the Palestinian society, the same thing happens within the Israeli society. There are extremists
Both sides.
within and there is incitement within the two societies. And there are people who maybe hope to see the other killed or murdered. This is the situation. There are very high tension between the two sides.
So this very high tension that we are... You want to answer?
I just want to
Yes, of
comment.
course.
I think that you pointed out another element of the tragedy here, and that is that I know, I'm saying this as a Jewish Orthodox rabbi in Israel, that mainstream Israeli Arabs want to live in coexistence and peace together with us. And this stains that entire relationship. And we do need to find a way to raise those moderate voices, which unfortunately don't exist and are drowned out,
Or they're
I believe.
really afraid to talk, or
No,
they're
I
really
understand.
afraid to
I'm
put their
not-
voices out there because they're
I've
afraid
met with
that...
them. I've met with them. I've talked with them, and they're there. The point that I would make in terms of the Palestinian leadership is that making a condemnation, that's one step. But would you, and I'll ask you, would you be willing to say to the viewers and to the world that there is no organized movement from the Israeli side to change the status quo on the Temple Mount, on the Al-Aqsa? And if you're not willing to say that, or President Abbas is not willing to say that, that plays into the incitement and subtly gives the right to these terrorists to act. And that's where I think we're really touching on the source of the problem here.
Do you want to answer?
I think that the problem here is that the Israeli government allows sometimes for extremist people to do provocations within the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
But would you
And
say that we're
so
not, that we
I
have no
know that-
organized plan?
I know that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that they don't want to change the status quo in the Al-Aqsa Mosque or the Holy Square. But unfortunately, people see something on the ground in the Al-Aqsa Mosque when, for example, Moshe Veglin brought a group of people with the provocations and declarations that we want to destroy this place and to build the third temple here.
So I agree with you that we have extremists on our side that don't help the situation whatsoever, but I think you do hear a very loud, clear voice, as I'm saying right now, that this is not our way, and we condemn any kind of provocation. I think we need to hear louder, clearer, moderate voices from the Palestinian side.
Gentlemen, I want to talk with you again and about these two words, status quo, that Benjamin Netanyahu lately talks a lot about. And this status quo situation is sometimes something of, this is the reality of Israel. This is the reality of the Palestinians. It seems that everyone wants to live in the status quo. The status quo is to keep the Hamas controlling the Gaza Strip because, okay, there was an Operation Protective Edge. Israel fought Hamas. And what are we seeing right now? Israel is still, in one way or another, trying to reach a deal with Hamas that still controls the Gaza Strip because it is for the benefit of Israel that Hamas is still there. The status quo in Israel, Israel has the sovereignty on Jerusalem, so Israel wants to keep this status quo. The status quo that we're not talking with President Mahmoud Abbas for now, although he's like half an hour distance from Jerusalem. The status quo thing, it seems that Israel is not moving from the status quo policy. It becomes a policy of Israel to stay in the status quo.
I agree with what you just said. The majority of Israelis, and certainly us in Yesh Atid, which is now the largest party in the Knesset, we don't believe that the status quo is tenable. We don't believe it even for the Israeli side. And I will speak out and say for Palestinians as well. This is a situation which cannot continue the way it is. So the question is, what do we do about that? How do we go about it? We believe that there needs to be an internationally backed movement. There's an opportunity with Egypt, with Saudi Arabia, with leadership in the region to think large, to think big. The steps have to be small. and trust building on both sides. The trust building, I would say, on the Palestinian side has to be, and I hope that my partner here or colleague here agrees, a stopping of the incitement even within the schools and the textbooks, which is there, which is rampant. On the Israeli side, we are against building new settlements outside the blocks because we understand how that creates a roadblock to moving forward. But I would call for the end to the incitement on the Palestinian side, and I do agree that leadership requires standing up on both sides and doing something big.
You know, in one way or another, do you want to answer? Do you want?
Yes, I just want to answer something about the textbooks and the education system in the Palestinian Authority. What we hear all the time from the Israeli media is mistaken.
I've seen the books.
No. There is no any material in any Palestinian official educational book speaking about any kind of incitement or hatred against the Jewish. This is untrue because the European Union donates all the publishing of these books, and they don't allow even one word against the Jewish or against any people in these books. But sometimes you can hear incitement from one teacher, for example, from one prayer.
One or two or three teachers.
Yes,
or
in the media, in the two sides, not in the Palestinian side. We hear also, and unfortunately, the media is attracted to the extremist voices.
Like President Abbas standing up and talking about the contamination of the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
No, not just. You can see what, for example, Zahar said today. The media all the time is attracted to the extremist voices from all sides. So you can't see the other moderate majority of the other society, even in Israel and in the Palestinian side. Unfortunately, this is the fact.
You know, we cannot ignore the extreme, this whole mess, let me call it, of this government, of this current government. You will see extreme right sitting next to a center, sitting next to a right, sitting next to a left. And it's not working. It's not working because the ideas are not the same. Because extreme right cannot... And we know how the extreme right here in Israel thinks. They don't think that there is a two-state solution. They don't think that any understanding with the Palestinians can be reached. They do think that the building and the settlements should continue. So, you know, this government, in one way or another, is not working because at the beginning of this government, they decided that the peace process is not important. So, you know, when we are hearing, maybe in the Palestinian side, you can hear incitement. On the Israeli side, the silence. And in one way, like to say that they're not doing anything with the peace process is some kind of saying, okay, we agree with the extreme voices in Israel.
I would agree with you that the current constellation of the Israeli government would not enable us to reach an agreement. But I will tell you that if we can make progress towards some kind of an agreement, the rearrangement can be done. There is enough political power in the Knesset to be able to get an agreement done. And if we are able to make that progress, which we have not made, those shifts would absolutely be made. And I do agree with you that there's more that we could be doing on our side. However, I'm going to repeat, our extremist voices are loudest when we don't have the strong condemnation, when we have the incitement from the other side. The more that we can have strong, courageous, and I understand exactly what you said about how courageous that has to be, a leadership on the Palestinian side to say, we are here to lead our people towards coexistence or peace side by side with the Jewish state and the Jewish people in Israel. The more that can happen, the easier it will be for us to squelch some of those extremist voices. I just want to add one more point. The extremist voices on the Israeli side are not in any way, shape, or form calling towards incitement to act towards any kind of terror.
Did you get into the Facebook recently in Israeli...
of Israeli leaders?
No, Israeli leaders maybe not, but you know, sometimes you will hear between... The subtext is sending the same extreme message. And even from Israeli leaders,
I agree that Israeli leaders have to be cautious as well.
Is sending exactly the same message as clear incitement from the Palestinian side, that they're saying it in words but not in subtext. But sometimes Israel is really perfect.
And thank God the results. I thank God the results aren't happening in the out there, and that's important. And
let's hope that the status quo in this,
call, as the Prime Minister did tonight, for no one to act out.
And let's hope that the status quo in this situation will stay a status quo and not something else. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with me in this part of the show. And David, back to you to our studios in the Jaffa Port. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy. I'll reach out in Jerusalem now.